Hey guys, tonight we're heading back to the sun-drenched, olive grove-dotted hills of ancient Greece. But we're not dealing with heroic battles or labyrinthine monsters this time. No, we're dealing with something far more universal, far more personally relatable. We're going to the very origin story of that foggy-headed, cottonmouth, why is this sun so loud morning after? The story of the world's first hangover and the equally desperate search for its cure. Picture this. You're not in a marble temple. You're in a grassy field at the foot of a mountain, the air still faintly smelling of spilled wine, crushed grapes, and, well, let's just say a party involving satyrs gets messy. Your head is throbbing with a rhythm that would make a war drum seem gentle, and every blink feels like sandpaper on your eyeballs. You, my friend, are a pioneer, experiencing a sensation so new, the world doesn't even have a word for it yet. You'd probably try to ask for aspirin, but the closest thing you'd get is a suspicious poultice made of crushed beetles and willow bark, and honestly, in your current state, you might just consider it. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're listening from somewhere in the world right now, maybe let me know in the comments where you are and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You don't so much wake up as you gradually solidify back into your body. The first thing you're aware of is a profound, geological scale headache, a deep, resonant pounding behind your eyes that feels less like a physical sensation and more like a divine punishment. Your mouth tastes as if a small, furry animal has crawled inside and decided to expire. You're lying in dewy grass, and the first rays of dawn are slicing through the olive trees like laser beams specifically designed to cause you personal discomfort. You try to sit up, and the world tilts on its axis with a nauseating lurch. This isn't just fatigue. This is a fundamental system failure. The last clear memory you have is of a joyous, chaotic frenzy. A charismatic, long-haired stranger, Dionysus himself, had turned water into wine, and not just any wine. This was the first wine. A divine vintage so potent, so ecstatic, that it felt less like drinking and more like having your soul gently power-washed with pure, unadulterated joy. You remember dancing with Maenads, their laughter like bells, their feet moving with impossible grace. You remember clapping a satyr on the back as he played a double flute with wild, breathless enthusiasm. It was all laughter and music and the feeling of the earth itself celebrating. Now, the earth feels like it's spinning too fast, and the only music is the high-pitched whine in your own ears. You hear a low groan to your left. A satyr is face down near a large, overturned clay crater, his goat legs twitching sporadically. To your right, a Maenad is meticulously weaving a flower crown with a look of intense, heartbreaking confusion, as if she can't remember why the activity now feels so mundane and pointless. The scene is one of peaceful, universal devastation. And then you see him, leaning against the trunk of a large pine tree, looking paler than his usual complexion, is the god of the vine himself, Dionysus. His thyrsus, the fennel staff topped with a pine cone, lies discarded beside him. He's massaging his own temples, his eyes closed. It's a strangely comforting sight, in a way. The god who caused this is suffering right along with you. It turns the whole experience from a punishment into a shared cultural moment. A very, very unpleasant one. He opens one eye, sees you looking, and offers a weak, pained smile. A bit potent, that first batch, wasn't it? He croaks. His voice, which last night was like honey and thunder, now sounds like gravel being dragged through a dry riverbed. This is the foundational hangover, the blueprint for every bad morning that would follow for millennia. And the most surprising little-known fact? The very first person to ever suffer a hangover was, technically, a god. The historians still debate whether Dionysus was truly susceptible or if he was just a brilliant method actor, empathizing perfectly with his new followers to strengthen their bond. Either way, the effect was the same. A deity and his devotees, united in mutual, throbbing misery. Hey guys, tonight we're heading back to the sun-drenched, olive grove-dotted hills of ancient Greece. But we're not dealing with heroic battles or labyrinthine monsters this time. No, we're dealing with something far more universal, far more personally relatable. We're going to the very origin story of that foggy-headed, Cottonmouth, why is this sun so loud morning after? The story of the world's first hangover and the equally desperate search for its cure. Picture this. You're not in a marble temple. You're in a grassy field at the foot of a mountain, the air still faintly smelling of spilled wine, crushed grapes, and, well, let's just say a party involving satyrs gets messy. Your head is throbbing with a rhythm that would make a war drum seem gentle, and every blink feels like sandpaper on your eyeballs. You, my friend, are a pioneer, experiencing a sensation so new, the world doesn't even have a word for it yet. You'd probably try to ask for aspirin, but the closest thing you'd get is a suspicious poultice made of crushed beetles and willow bark, and honestly, in your current state, you might just consider it. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're listening from somewhere in the world right now, maybe let me know in the comments where you are and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You don't so much wake up as you gradually solidify back into your body. The first thing you're aware of is a profound, geological scale headache, a deep, resonant pounding behind your eyes that feels less like a physical sensation and more like a divine punishment. Your mouth tastes as if a small, furry animal has crawled inside and decided to expire. You're lying in dewy grass, and the first rays of dawn are slicing through the olive trees like laser beams specifically designed to cause you personal discomfort. You try to sit up, and the world tilts on its axis with a nauseating lurch. This isn't just fatigue. This is a fundamental system failure. The last clear memory you have is of a joyous, chaotic frenzy. A charismatic, long-haired stranger, Dionysus himself, had turned water into wine, and not just any wine. This was the first wine, a divine vintage so potent, so ecstatic, that it felt less like drinking and more like having your soul gently power-washed with pure, unadulterated joy. You remember dancing with Maenads, their laughter like bells, their feet moving with impossible grace. You remember clapping a satyr on the back as he played a double flute with wild, breathless enthusiasm. It was all laughter and music and the feeling of the earth itself celebrating. Now, the earth feels like it's spinning too fast, and the only music is the high-pitched whine in your own ears. You hear a low groan to your left. A satyr is face down near a large, overturned clay crater, his goat legs twitching sporadically. To your right, a Maenad is meticulously weaving a flower crown with a look of intense, heartbreaking confusion, as if she can't remember why the activity now feels so mundane and pointless. The scene is one of peaceful, universal devastation. And then you see him, leaning against the trunk of a large pine tree, looking paler than his usual complexion, is the god of the vine himself, Dionysus. His thyrsus, the fennel staff topped with a pine cone, lies discarded beside him. He's massaging his own temples, his eyes closed. It's a strangely comforting sight, in a way. The god who caused this is suffering right along with you. It turns the whole experience from a punishment into a shared cultural moment. A very, very unpleasant one. He opens one eye, sees you looking, and offers a weak, pained smile. A bit potent, that first batch, wasn't it? He croaks. His voice, which last night was like honey and thunder, now sounds like gravel being dragged through a dry riverbed. This is the foundational hangover, the blueprint for every bad morning that would follow for millennia. And the most surprising little-known fact? The very first person to ever suffer a hangover was, technically, a god. The historians still debate whether Dionysus was truly susceptible or if he was just a brilliant method actor, empathizing perfectly with his new followers to strengthen their bond. Either way, the effect was the same. A deity and his devotees, united in mutual, throbbing misery. You follow Dionysus down the sun-drenched slope, each step sending a fresh jolt through your aching head. The world is painfully bright and clear, every leaf on the olive trees etched with unnatural sharpness. The god moves with a determined, if slightly wobbly, gait, his focus entirely on the vineyard below. As you get closer, the sweet, cloying scent of overripe grapes and fermenting juice hangs heavy in the air, a smell that was intoxicatingly divine just hours ago, but now feels like a direct assault on your senses. It's the olfactory equivalent of someone shouting right behind your eyes. Dionysus comes to a halt at the edge of the first terrace, leaning on his thyrsus and scrutinizing the plump, dark purple fruit as if he's never seen it before. The source of our joy, he murmurs, and our current predicament. We must understand it fully. He reaches out, plucks a single grape, and rolls it between his fingers with the intense concentration of a detective examining a crucial piece of evidence. You half expect him to pull out a magnifying glass. Observe, he instructs you, his voice low. The skin, tough and resilient, protecting the sweet nectar within. A perfect vessel, yet it is the fermentation of that very nectar that causes our distress. It's a bizarre lecture on viticulture delivered by its inventor, while both lecturer and student are actively suffering from its effects. He leads you on a slow walk between the vines, pointing out details you'd never normally notice. He shows you how the morning dew collects on the leaves, beating up like tiny, clear pearls. Water, he muses, the great diluter. Perhaps part of the answer lies not in adding something, but in reintroducing what we have foolishly removed. He then points to the ground, where the fallen, crushed grapes are already attracting a diligent army of ants. See, even the smallest creatures know the value of the fruit, but they take it in its pure, unfermented state. Their tiny bodies cannot handle the transformation. He sounds almost jealous of the ants. This is the popular historical event, the god of wine studying his own creation. But the weird, lesser-known fact he shares with you is about the vine's roots. He stops at a particularly gnarled, old vine and taps its base with his staff. This one, he says, its roots are tangled with those of a wild mint plant. Notice how the grapes on this vine have a faint, cool undertone? A coincidence, or a hint from the earth itself. He plucks a leaf from the mint and crushes it, holding it under your nose. The sharp, clean scent is a shocking, wonderful relief from the sugary grape smell, a momentary clearing of the fog in your head. It's a tiny spark of hope. The historians still debate whether this was a genuine botanical discovery or just the desperate pattern-seeking of a hungover mind, but the effect was the same. It introduced the concept of counteracting one sensation with its opposite. For the next 20 minutes, you follow him, your journey becoming a sensory catalog of potential remedies. The rough bark of an oak tree, he claims, can settle the spirit. The sharp tang of a wild-thyme bush. The bizarre, almost meaty smell of a particular mushroom he explicitly tells you to avoid. It's the world's first chaotic, field-based pharmaceutical research, and you are his very reluctant, very nauseous lab assistant. Just as the sheer, overwhelming volume of botanical information begins to feel like another form of punishment, a commotion from a nearby thicket breaks your concentration. It's Dionysus's herd of goats, the ones that usually follow the satyrs, milling about and nibbling on anything green. One particular goat, a scruffy brown fellow with one horn slightly askew, seems more enterprising than the rest. He strayed from the group and is enthusiastically munching on a patch of unassuming, feathery-looking weeds with tiny yellow flowers. You wouldn't have given it a second glance, just another anonymous plant in a landscape full of them. But Dionysus goes completely still, his godly senses, even dimmed by a hangover, focusing on the animal. Wait, he whispers, holding up a hand. You watch as the goat, after a few more mouthfuls, suddenly stops chewing. It doesn't look sick. It doesn't stagger or fall over. Instead, it lets out a soft, contented bleat, its eyes taking on a distinctly dreamy, unfocused quality. It then lies down in the patch of weeds, not with the clumsy collapse of an animal in distress, but with a serene, deliberate grace, and begins to chew its cud with an expression of profound, blissful peace. Its earlier skittish energy is gone, replaced by a zen-like calm that is deeply enviable in your current state. It's the most relaxed creature you have ever seen. Dionysus moves forward with a new, sharp intensity, his own discomfort forgotten in the thrill of discovery. He kneels, a god kneeling in the dirt, beside the patch of weeds, carefully examining the plant the goat was eating. He avoids touching it directly, instead using the tip of his thyrsus to lift a stalk. Fennel, he breathes, his voice full of revelation. But not just any fennel. Look at the base of the stem, where it meets the root. See that faint, milky sap? You lean in, squinting. There is indeed a subtle, opalescent residue where the goat bit through the stem. This is a peculiar variety, Dionysus explains, his eyes alight. It grows only in soil that has been, how to put it, blessed by the passage of my satyrs. The combination of certain natural minerals and, other organic fertilizers creates a unique potency in the plant. This is the weird, little-known fact of the story. The first potential hangover cure was discovered not by a god or a human, but by a goat with an adventurous palate, and its key ingredient was essentially growing in sacred, Saturn-rich soil. It adds a whole new, slightly unhygienic layer to the concept of farm-to-table remedy. Dionysus carefully harvests a few stalks, his movements precise. This sap, he murmurs, more to himself than to you. It doesn't just soothe the stomach. It seems to calm the frenzy within. It brings a quiet to the noise. He looks from the blissfully stoned goat back to your pained face. A slow smile spreads across his lips. The earth provides, he says. It just needed a goat to show us the way. The historians still debate the exact psychoactive properties of this particular ancient fennel strain, and whether its effects were genuinely curative or merely substitutive, replacing one altered state with another, more manageable one. But in that moment, as you look at the peacefully chewing goat, you don't care about the mechanism. You just want the result. Dionysus cradles the stalks of peculiar fennel as if they were scepters of solid gold. The goat's serendipitous discovery has given him a direction, but he knows a single ingredient, no matter how promising, won't be enough. The goat has shown us a path, he says, his voice low and thoughtful, but the language of the earth is complex. To brew a true cure, we need a translator. We need someone who speaks the whispered secrets of root, leaf, and flower. He turns from the vineyard, his gaze shifting towards the deeper, older woods that blanket the higher slopes of the mountain. We need a nymph. The way he says it makes it clear this is not a casual suggestion. Nymphs are capricious, territorial, and notoriously difficult to find unless they wish to be found. Your heart, already struggling with its rhythmic pounding, sinks a little. A trek through dense, shadowy forest is the last thing your body wants, but the determined glint in the god's eyes brooks no argument. He leads the way, his thyrsus now acting as a hiking staff, and you follow. The gentle, hypnotic crunch of his footsteps on the dry pine needles the only sound besides the frantic drumming in your own head. The air changes as you enter the woods. It's cooler, damper, and filled with the rich, loamy scent of decaying leaves and living moss. Sunlight filters down in scattered, dappled patches, and the world feels hushed, as if the trees themselves are listening. Dionysus moves with a strange certainty, not following a visible path but an unseen current. He stops occasionally, placing a hand on the trunk of an ancient oak or listening to the babble of a hidden stream. You walk for what feels like an age, your discomfort a constant, dull companion. Finally, he halts before a colossal, gnarled willow tree, its branches trailing into the waters of a small, crystal-clear spring that seems to appear from nowhere in the forest floor. "Lotus," he calls out, his voice soft but carrying an undeniable divine authority. "Nymph of this grove, I seek your counsel." For a long moment, nothing happens. Then, as if she has always been there, a figure emerges from behind the willow's trunk. She is not human, that much is clear. Her skin has the greenish-brown hue of the willow bark, her hair a cascade of trailing leaves and tiny, white, star-shaped flowers. Her eyes are the color of the deep pool. She looks at Dionysus, then at you, her expression unreadable. Dionysus presents the fennel to her without a word. She takes a stalk, her slender fingers brushing against the milky sap. She brings it to her nose, inhales deeply, and then, to your surprise, gives the sap a tiny, cautious taste with the tip of her tongue. Her eyes close. "The goat weed," she says, her voice like the rustling of leaves. It stills the storm in the blood, but it is a blunt instrument. Alone, it will bring sleep, but also a thick-headedness upon waking. You need balance. This is the popular core of the tale, the consultation with the nature spirit. But the weird, little-known fact she reveals next is about water. She gestures to her spring. "The water you drank last night was from a village well, stirred by the comings and goings of men. It was noisy. For your cure, you need water that has only ever heard the whispers of the earth and the songs of the stars." water that has slept deep in the rock, untouched and dreamless. She dips a hollowed gourd into her spring and offers it to you. You drink. It is unlike any water you have ever tasted, profoundly cold, clean, and somehow silent. It feels like a blessing washing through the arid, painful landscape of your body. The historians still debate whether these nymphs were real spiritual entities or simply a mythological representation of the profound, localized herbal knowledge held by certain reclusive individuals in ancient Greece. But the result was recorded. The cure required not just ingredients, but ingredients of a specific, almost sacred purity. Dionysus nods, absorbing her wisdom. Balance and purity, he summarizes. The storm and the stillness. We have a recipe. The return from the nymph's grove feels lighter, charged with a new sense of purpose. You carry a clay amphora, stoppered with a wax-sealed cork, filled to the brim with the nymph's impossibly pure, silent water. It sloshes gently with each step, a cool, heavy promise against your back. Dionysus carries the bundle of special fennel, along with a few other offerings from the nymph. A sprig of sharp-smelling mint she claimed would wake up the stomach, and a handful of tiny, dried, purple flowers called hyssop for cleansing the spirit. The campsite you return to is a slightly more organized version of the morning's chaos. A few of the Maenads, looking less confused and more determined, have built a small, efficient fire. A large bronze cauldron, usually used for much less medicinal purposes, hangs over it, already filled with water from a nearby stream, water that will soon be replaced by your far superior vintage. The air is no longer one of pure defeat, but of a focused, if slightly desperate, workshop. Dionysus lays out the ingredients on a clean, flat stone like a general plotting a campaign. Right? He says, clapping his hands together and then immediately wincing at the sound. Let's brew. The process is anything but precise. It's the first ever clinical trial, and it looks more like a chaotic cooking show hosted by a hungover deity. One of the Maenads, a woman named Chryses with remarkably steady hands given the circumstances, takes the lead on preparing the fennel. She doesn't just chop it. She bruises the stalks with a smooth river stone, explaining in a low voice that it releases the sleepy spirit within the sap. The sharp, licorice-like scent of the crushed fennel fills the air, mingling with the wood smoke, and it's strangely soothing. Another Maenad is tasked with shredding the mint leaves, their crisp, clean aroma cutting through the heavier scent of the fennel. Dionysus himself oversees the most critical step, the combination. He pours your amphora of sacred spring water into the cauldron, and the ordinary stream water is unceremoniously dumped onto the roots of an olive tree. We start with a pure base, he intones, his voice regaining some of its ceremonial gravity. As the water begins to steam, he adds the bruised fennel, stalks and all, instructing Chryses to stir it slowly with a stick of clean, peeled birch. Not too fast, he cautions. We are coaxing, not commanding. We are persuading the remedies to mingle. The mixture in the cauldron turns a pale, murky green and develops a smell that can only be described as challenging. It's like earthy licorice and menthol had a baby, and that baby was then wrapped in a damp wool blanket. It is not an immediately appealing aroma. This is the less glamorous, rarely mentioned part of the myth. The world's first hangover cure smelled absolutely terrible. After what he deems the appropriate amount of coaxing, Dionysus signals for the mint and the hyssop flowers to be added. The mint provides a welcome, sharp top note to the smell, like a fresh breeze through a swamp. He then produces a small honeycomb from a pouch at his belt, a gift from a local beekeeper who was an early devotee. For the bitterness, he explains, breaking off a piece and letting the golden honey drip into the simmering concoction. And for the soul, a cure must have a little sweetness, or no one will bother to take it. The historians still debate the exact proportions used, as the recipe was passed down orally and changed with every telling. But the core ingredients, fennel, mint, hyssop, honey, and pure water, remain constant in the earliest accounts. Finally, he plucks the pine cone from the top of his thyrsus and dips it into the brew, swirling it 3 times. A blessing, he says simply. He then ladles a small amount of the murky, greenish-brown liquid into a clay cup. It steams ominously. The concoction is complete. It sits there, in the cup, a potential miracle that looks and smells like a swamp. All it needs now is a brave, or desperately foolish, soul to taste it. A tense silence falls over the makeshift clinic. The only sounds are the crackle of the fire and the gentle, hopeful simmer of the cauldron. All eyes are on the clay cup of steaming, murky liquid. It sits on the flat stone, looking less like a divine remedy and more like something you'd scrape off the bottom of a boat. The Maenads glance at each other, their earlier determination now mixed with a healthy dose of trepidation. You find yourself taking a very subtle step backwards, trying to blend in with the bark of an olive tree. The scent of anise and mint now has an underlying, vegetal bitterness that seems to claw at the back of your throat. Dionysus scans the faces of his followers, his gaze lingering for a moment on you before moving on. He needs a volunteer, and volunteers are in short supply when the proposed reward is drinking that. His eyes then land on a satyr who has managed to prop himself up against a rock. It's the same one who was face down in the grass earlier. He's looking slightly more aware now, though his ears are still drooping and his goatish tail is lying limp in the dust. His name, you've learned, is Lycos, and he's known for his enthusiastic lack of caution. Lycos, Dionysus says, his voice a blend of encouragement and command. My loyal follower, you have partaken deeply of the inaugural celebration. You understand the problem intimately. Will you do the honor of being the first to test the solution? Lycos' eyes, bleary and bloodshot, widen. He looks at the cup, then at the god, then back at the cup. He's clearly weighing his deep-seated loyalty against a very powerful instinct for self-preservation. Loyalty, bolstered by the fact that saying no to a god is generally a poor long-term strategy, wins out. He pushes himself unsteadily to his feet, takes a deep breath that seems to hurt, and shuffles forward. For the glory of the vine, my lord. He croaks, his voice a testament to his own personal suffering. He reaches out a trembling hand and picks up the cup. The entire clearing holds its breath. You find you've stopped breathing altogether. Lycos brings the cup to his lips. He hesitates for one last, dramatic second, pinches his nostrils shut with his other hand, and throws the entire contents of the cup down his throat in one desperate, gurgling swallow. For a moment, nothing happens. He stands there, eyes wide, still holding his nose, waiting. A flicker of something, relief, clarity, seems to pass over his face. He lowers his hand from his nose. He opens his mouth, perhaps to proclaim the miracle, and then, his face turns a shade of pale green that perfectly matches the concoction he just drank. A violent shudder racks his entire body, from his hooves to the tips of his horns. He makes a sound, a deep, guttural, profoundly unhappy sound from the very core of his being, and then he lurches behind the nearest bush. The sounds that follow are explicit, wet, and leave very little to the imagination. It is not the sound of a cure taking effect. It is the sound of a cure being violently, immediately rejected. The hope that had been building in the air pops like a soap bubble. Dionysus's shoulders slump. The Maenads look down at their feet. From behind the bush, a weak, miserable voice calls out, "The glory of the vine is a lie." The first clinical trial has ended in catastrophic and acoustically vivid failure. The historians still debate whether the failure was due to the recipe being incorrect or if Lycos' stomach was simply too far gone to accept any form of help. Either way, the result was a setback that echoed through the quiet grove. The optimistic energy from the brewing session evaporates, leaving behind the stark, familiar scent of defeat, now mingled unpleasantly with the aroma of vomit and failed remedy. Lycos' retching eventually subsides into pathetic, whimpering groans from behind the bush. The other satyrs, who had been watching with a sliver of hope, now look at each other with a grim, told you so resignation and slowly begin to disperse, seeking out quieter, less experimental patches of shade to suffer in. The Maenads look to Dionysus, their expressions a mixture of pity and unspoken doubt. The god himself stares at the now empty clay cup as if it has personally betrayed him. He picks it up, sniffs the residual odor, and wrinkles his nose. Too harsh, he mutters to himself, his voice low and analytical, cutting through his own disappointment. The fennel's power is too direct. It's a club, not a key. And the stomach, in its current state, is a fortress with its gates locked shut. He turns from the cauldron, his gaze growing distant, looking past the vineyard, past the woods, towards the hazy, blue line of the distant sea. The problem is one of essence, he announces, his voice gaining strength as his thoughts coalesce. We have treated the symptoms of the excess, but we have not addressed the root of the chaos itself. The mind was scattered, the senses overwhelmed. We need something that doesn't just soothe the body, but one that gathers the scattered pieces of the spirit and gently puts them back together. He begins to pace, his thyrsus tapping a thoughtful rhythm on the ground. The nymph spoke of balance. Lycos's reaction was the ultimate imbalance. We need an ingredient of profound peace, something that embodies a stillness so complete it can calm the storm I myself create. He stops pacing and looks directly at you, his eyes alight with a new, daunting idea. There are tales, he says, from sailors who have strayed too far south. Tales of an island shrouded in a soft, perpetual mist where a lotus tree grows. Its fruit, they say, is so sweet, so enchanting, that those who eat it forget their homes, their troubles, their very destinies. They exist in a state of blissful, weightless oblivion. A slight, worried murmur passes through the Maenads. The lotus eaters are a cautionary tale, a symbol of dangerous, escapist apathy. But Dionysus shakes his head. Not forgetfulness. He corrects, interpreting their concern. We do not seek to erase the memory of the joy, only the painful aftermath. We seek the essence of that peace, the principle behind the fruit's power, but refined, purified. We will not use the fruit itself to make men forget their lives. We will use the flower from which it springs to help them remember how to feel well. This is the pivotal, strategic shift in the quest. The popular history focuses on the journey for the lotus, but the lesser-known, crucial nuance was Dionysus's intention to transform a dangerous agent of forgetfulness into a targeted tool of therapeutic relief. He wasn't seeking the oblivion. He was seeking the chemical blueprint of its tranquility. The historians still fiercely debate whether this was a moment of genuine pharmacological genius or a post hoc justification for a risky expedition. The voyage will not be easy, Dionysus says, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. The seas around that island are treacherous, and the allure of the lotus is a siren call of a different kind. But within that flower may lie the final piece of our puzzle, the gentle hand that closes the door on the riot within. He places a hand on your shoulder. The message is clear. Your role as his reluctant assistant is far from over. The failed brew is abandoned, the cauldron left to cool. The quest is no longer local. It has just expanded to encompass the wide, wine-dark sea. The decision, once made, sets everything into a whirlwind of motion that feels entirely at odds with your lingering, slow-motion hangover. Within what feels like mere minutes, you find yourself standing on a rocky beach, the salty, sharp tang of the sea air a brutal, but effective, counter-irritant to the sweet, cloying smells of the failed remedy. A sleek, 50-oared Pentecoster, one of the ships of Dionysus's personal, slightly disreputable fleet, rests in the shallow water, its hull painted with images of cavorting dolphins and twisting grapevines. The satyrs, it turns out, are surprisingly adept sailors when sufficiently motivated, which in this case involves the promise of not feeling like death warmed over for the foreseeable future. They scramble up the ropes, their hooves finding purchase on the deck with practiced ease. The Maenads, more solemn, carry aboard amphorae of fresh water, bread, and, somewhat pointedly, a small cask of a very mild, diluted wine for medicinal purposes only. Dionysus stands at the prow, his hair and robes already whipping in the offshore breeze, his eyes fixed on the horizon. He looks like himself again, the dynamic, untamed god of the frontier, not the pale figure leaning against a tree. You are ushered aboard, and with a cry from the captain's satyr and the synchronized dip of 25 oars, the ship slides out into the deep blue. The journey is a study in sensory contrasts. The rhythmic splash of the oars and the creak of the timbers are a monotonous, almost soothing soundtrack, a vast improvement on the high-pitched whine in your ears from this morning. The vast, empty expanse of the sea and sky is a visual balm after the overwhelming, close-up details of the vineyard and the forest. You spend the first day simply leaning against the railing, letting the spray cool your face, and watching the dolphins play in the ship's wake. It's the best you've felt all day, and you haven't ingested anything more complex than a piece of hardtack. Dionysus periodically consults with a nereid who surfaces beside the ship, her hair streaming with seaweed, who gives him whispered directions in a language of bubbles and clicks. This is the popular, romanticized part of the voyage. But the weird, little-known fact of the journey involves the ship's ballast. To keep the ship stable, the hold was filled with sacks of coarse salt, mined from the lagoons near Dionysus's primary temple. As the sea spray coated the deck and everything on it, a fine layer of this salt settled on your skin and lips. Without realizing it, you were constantly replenishing the electrolytes your body had desperately lost during the night's festivities. It was an accidental, primitive form of hydration therapy. The salt on your lips, the clean air in your lungs, the gentle rocking of the ship. It was all working together, slowly, imperceptibly, to undo the damage before you even found the fabled lotus. On the afternoon of the second day, the air changes. It grows warmer, heavier, and carries a strange, floral sweetness that seems to coat the back of your throat. A low-lying bank of mist appears on the horizon, and the nereid, when she next appears, gives a sharp, warning shake of her head before diving deep and not returning. "We are close," Dionysus announces, his voice tense with anticipation. The sailors grow quiet, their usual body shanties dying on their lips. The mist envelopes the ship, muffling the sounds of the oars and reducing the world to a soft, gray cocoon. And then you see it through the haze, a low, green island, its shores fringed with strange, broad-leaf trees heavy with pale, golden fruit. The Lotus Eater's Island. It looks peaceful, serene, and deeply, unnervingly silent. The historians still debate the exact location of this island, with theories placing it everywhere off the coast of Libya to the Dodecanese, but all accounts agree on one thing. The silence was the most frightening part. It was the sound of ambition, memory, and desire, all gently erased. The ship glides to a halt in the calm, misty waters just off the beach, the oars pulled silently aboard. The plan is simple, a small, swift landing party, just you, Dionysus, and two of the most strong-willed maenads. The goal is not to linger, not to taste, but to harvest a few of the delicate, creamy white lotus flowers that bloom amidst the glossy green leaves, then depart with all possible speed. As the small rowboat touches the sandy shore, the profound silence of the island presses in on your eardrums. There's no birdsong, no insect buzz, no wind in the leaves. It's a vacuum of sound, and in your already sensitive state, it feels both unnerving and, you have to admit, deeply peaceful. You see them then, the lotus eaters. They are not monsters. They are people, scattered in small groups along the beach or sitting in the shade of the trees. They are well fed, their faces smooth and untroubled. They look up as you arrive, their eyes clear and friendly, but utterly vacant, like calm, deep pools with nothing living in them. One of them approaches, holding out a platter of the golden fruit, a benign, welcoming smile on his face. He doesn't speak. He just offers. It's not a threat. It's an invitation to nothingness. Dionysus holds up a hand, a gentle but firm refusal. The man simply shrugs, still smiling, and returns to his spot in the sand, taking a slow, contented bite of the fruit himself. The allure isn't a violent pull. It's a soft, seductive whisper that makes all your problems, the headache, the nausea, the general sense of existential regret, seem trivial and far away. Why seek a complicated cure when you could just forget the problem ever existed? The temptation is a physical weight, trying to bend your knees, to sit, to just stop striving. But then, cutting through the oppressive, sweet silence, you hear it. It starts as a faint, melodic hum, so distant you think it might be the blood rushing in your own ears. But it grows, resolving into a harmony of female voices, wordless and ethereal, drifting from somewhere out to sea. The sirens, their song, famed for luring sailors to their doom on the rocks, weaves through the mist, and it does something extraordinary. Instead of inciting mad desire, its complex, beautiful, and strangely organized melody acts as a counterpoint to the island's formless peace. It is a reminder of art, of structure, of a beauty that requires a mind to appreciate it. It's the musical equivalent of a slap in the face. Dionysus hears it too, and he grins, a flash of his old, wild self. They're jealous, he whispers, his voice a thrilling intrusion in the quiet. They can't stand a rival. Their song is one of desperate wanting. This place is one of having nothing. They are, for once, our unwitting allies. The siren's song, usually an agent of chaos, now serves as an anchor, a tether to the world of desires and goals. It reminds you why you're here. You're not here to give up. You're here to find a way to feel better so you can go back to living. The historians still debate whether this was a mere coincidence of maritime geography or a deliberate, strategic move by Dionysus, knowing the siren's territory bordered the Lotus Eaters and that one obsession would cancel out the other. Shaken from the island's torpor, you and the Maenads move quickly, your hands protected by strips of cloth, plucking a dozen of the most pristine lotus flowers and placing them in a sealed wicker basket. The Lotus Eaters watch you, their smiles never fading, utterly indifferent to your theft. As you push the rowboat back into the water, the siren's song fades, its job done. You leave the silent island behind, the basket of flowers sitting in the boat like a captured dream, its power now a tool, not a trap. The return voyage from the island of forgetfulness is charged with a new, urgent energy. The basket of lotus flowers sits amidships, emanating a palpable, drowsy serenity that seems to fight back against the rhythmic, purposeful motion of the oars. It's a strange cargo, a captured piece of that silent island, and everyone gives it a wide, respectful berth. The siren's song, having served its paradoxical purpose, has faded into the mist behind you, and the familiar, open sea now feels like a return to reality. But Dionysus is not yet satisfied. As the ship cuts through the waves, he stands by the basket, his brow furrowed in thought. The lotus will provide the peace for the mind, he muses, almost to himself, and the fennel the calm for the body. But the vessel, the medium that carries them, the nymph was right. It must be perfect. It must be water that has never known tumult. He turns to the ship's captain, a grizzled old satyr with a salt-encrusted beard. We do not return to the camp yet. Take us to the mouth of the river Achelous. A ripple of unease passes through the crew. The Achelous is not just any river. It's the largest and most powerful in all of Greece. And its god, Achelous, is known for his volatile temper and possessive nature. He is a shapeshifter, often depicted as a bull-headed man or a mighty serpent, and he does not take kindly to those who draw from his waters without tribute. This is the part of the quest that rarely makes the popular retellings, the diplomatic mission to a notoriously prickly river god. The ship changes course, sailing along the coastline until the vast, silt-laden delta of the Achelous comes into view. Dionysus orders the ship to anchor a safe distance from the powerful current. He then prepares a small offering, a cup of the strong, undiluted wine from his personal stash, a handful of the precious mint, and a single, perfect lotus flower. He places it all on a small, ornate raft and sets it adrift towards the river's mouth. You watch, holding your breath, as the raft is caught by the current and pulled under the surface. For a long moment, nothing happens. Then, the water before the ship begins to boil and churn. A head and torso emerge from the foam, formed of water and worn, smooth stone. His face is ancient, bearded with river weed, and his eyes are the color of deep, turbulent pools. Dionysus, the river god's voice is the sound of 1,000 boulders grinding together in a flood. You bring trinkets to my door. You seek my essence? Dionysus offers a respectful bow, a god acknowledging a powerful peer. Great Achelous, he replies, his voice calm and resonant. I do not seek to take from you. I seek to borrow a measure of your purest, most silent water, from your deepest, most hidden spring. Not for revelry, but for a cure, a remedy for the affliction that follows ecstasy. Achelous scowls, the water around him growing choppy. You wish to use my waters to clean up the mess from your own indulgences? The irony is not lost on me, little vine god. The negotiation is tense. Dionysus doesn't plead, he bargains. He offers a promise that in every ceremony where the cure is used, the first libation will be poured not just to him, Dionysus, but to Achelous as well, in gratitude for the water that made the healing possible. It's a brilliant move, offering the river god a permanent place in the new ritual, a share of the glory and the worship. The historians still debate whether Achilles was truly swayed by the offer or simply saw an opportunity to expand his own influence, but the result was the same. The river god's expression softens. He gives a slow, ponderous nod. A single, perfectly clear bubble, the size of your head, rises from the depths and floats towards the ship. Inside it swirls water of impossible clarity. Take it. Achilles rumbles, before sinking beneath the surface, the waters calming instantly. Dionysus carefully captures the bubble in a golden amphora. They now had the final ingredient, water that had never known noise. The ship's return to the camp is triumphant, a word that feels both fitting and wildly exaggerated given the humble, hungover reality of the place. A few satyrs have mustered the energy to play a slow, mournful tune on their flutes, which is at least an improvement over the groaning. All eyes are on the 3 sacred ingredients now arranged on a clean linen cloth. The bundle of mystical fennel, its milky sap glistening. The wicker basket from which the soporific scent of the lotus flowers whispers out, and the golden amphora containing the silent, dreaming water of the Achilles spring. Dionysus surveys them with the air of a master artist about to begin his masterpiece. There will be no chaotic boiling in a bronze cauldron this time. This is alchemy. He sends a Maenad to fetch a large, perfectly smooth marble mortar and pestle, used normally for grinding sacred barley. Precision, he announces to you and his inner circle. Not force. We are not conquering the affliction, we are persuading it to leave. The process is mesmerizing in its slowness, a ritual in itself. First, he takes a single, perfect lotus flower. He doesn't crush it. He gently plucks the petals, letting them fall into the mortar. For the mind, he whispers, to quiet the riot of thoughts. He then takes a single stalk of the fennel, and using the edge of a seashell, he carefully scrapes only the faintest residue of the milky sap onto the petals. For the body, he murmurs, to settle the storm within. He adds one single, shredded mint leaf. For the senses, he says, to provide a path back to the waking world. Finally, he uncorks the golden amphora. The water within has no scent, but the air around it seems to grow stiller, quieter. Using a dropper made from a hollowed reed, he adds exactly 7 drops to the mortar. The historians still debate the significance of the number 7, whether it was for the 7 known planets or simply because it felt right. Then, he begins to grind. The pestle moves in a slow, circular, clockwise motion. There is no violence in the action, only a gentle, persistent persuasion. The creamy petals, the sticky sap, the sharp mint, and the silent water begin to merge, not into a paste, but into a thin, opalescent, pale green liquid that seems to hold the light within it. As he grinds, he hums a low, droning melody, a tune without beginning or end. The Maenads join in, their voices creating a soft, harmonic blanket of sound that smothers the last remnants of your headache. It's the antithesis of the ecstatic cries of the night before. This is the sound of peace being consciously, deliberately woven back together. The smell that rises from the mortar is not the challenging odor of the first attempt. It is complex and layered. A cool, floral top note from the lotus, a deep, earthy anise heart from the fennel, and a clean, crisp finish from the mint. It smells, against all odds, like tranquility itself. After what feels like an eternity of this gentle alchemy, he stops. He pours the tiny amount of liquid through a fine linen cloth into a small, crystal-clear kylix. The liquid that emerges is now perfectly translucent, shimmering with a soft, internal luminescence. It looks like captured moonlight. He holds it up. There is no steam, no ominous simmer. It is cool to the touch. The final concoction is complete. It is a world away from the swampy brew that defeated Lycos. This one isn't a challenge, it's an invitation. All that remains is to see if the invitation will be accepted by a stomach that has learned to be deeply, profoundly suspicious. The moment of truth hangs in the air, thick and silent. The failed memory of Lycos' violent rejection is a ghost at this new feast. Dionysus holds the kylix of shimmering liquid, his gaze sweeping over the assembled, still suffering followers. He doesn't call for a volunteer this time. The memory of the last attempt is too raw. Instead, his eyes land on you. There's a question in them, not a command. You've been with him from the beginning, through the vineyard investigation, the nymph's grove, the disastrous first brew, the sea voyage, and the tense river bargain. You have witnessed the entire, painstaking R&D process. It feels fitting. You take a slow breath, your stomach clenching in anticipatory rebellion. You nod. A slight, relieved smile touches Dionysus's lips. He hands you the kylix. It's cool in your hands, almost cold. The liquid within is utterly still, like a tiny, perfect pond. The scent that rises from it is subtle and complex, a promise of cool forests and quiet mornings. You bring the cup to your lips. There's no need to pinch your nose. The aroma is genuinely pleasant. You take a small, cautious sip. The taste is not what you expected. It's not sweet, not bitter, not herby. It's clean. It's like drinking the concept of freshness. It feels cool as it slides over your tongue and down your throat, leaving a faint, refreshing tingle of mint in its wake. There is no immediate, dramatic transformation. No heavenly choirs. But something subtle begins to happen. The pounding in your head, a constant companion since dawn, doesn't vanish, but it recedes. It's as if the war drum has been moved from inside your skull to a distant field, its rhythm muffled by hills. The tight, nauseous knot in your stomach doesn't unravel, but it loosens its grip, allowing you to take a deep, full breath for the first time all day. A wave of profound, gentle calm washes over you, not the drugged oblivion of the Lotus Island, but the clear-headed peace of a task completed, a storm past. The frantic, anxious energy that had been buzzing just under your skin simply dissipates, leaving a pleasant, heavy languor in its place. You look at Dionysus, your eyes wide. You take another, deeper sip. Across the clearing, others are watching you, holding their breath. They see the tension drain from your shoulders. They see the pain squint around your eyes soften. A Maenad, emboldened, steps forward and takes the kylix from you, sipping from the other side. Her reaction is the same. A slow, deep exhale, a hand going to her chest, as if feeling her own heartbeat calm. A satyr, less cautious now, grabs the cup and downs the remainder. Instead of rushing for the bushes, he simply sits down hard on the ground, a look of stunned relief on his face. The noise, he whispers, the noise in my head, it stopped. It's a quiet miracle. There's no cheering, no wild celebration. That would be counterproductive. Instead, a collective, grateful sigh seems to rise from the camp. The cure works. It doesn't erase the hangover instantly, but it tames it, gentles it, reduces it from a divine punishment to a manageable inconvenience. The historians still debate the exact pharmacological composition, theorizing about natural antispasmodics in the fennel, mild sedatives in the lotus, and the pure rehydrating properties of the water, but all accounts agree. This was the successful clinical trial. Dionysus watches, a true, unadulterated smile finally gracing his features. He hasn't just cured a headache. He has fulfilled his divine promise. The god of ecstasy has now, officially, become the god of the graceful recovery. The successful trial spreads through the camp not with shouts, but with a quiet, reverent urgency. The recipe, once perfected, is replicated on a larger scale. The Maenads, now expert apothecaries, work with a serene efficiency, grinding the sacred ingredients in precise rotations, their humming chant becoming the official soundtrack of recovery. Soon, every satyr, every mortal follower, is holding a small cup of the shimmering, pale green liquid. The atmosphere transforms from one of miserable convalescence into something resembling a quiet, very relaxed garden party. The frantic energy of Dionysian worship has discovered its necessary counterweight. This, you realize, is the true legacy of the cure. It isn't just about alleviating physical pain. It's about creating a sustainable culture. The worship of Dionysus could now be a cycle. The joyous, ecstatic release, followed by a communal, ritualized healing. The party could end without the promise of punishment, making the party itself a less daunting, more inviting prospect. It was a revolutionary concept in divine human relations. This practice quickly embedded itself into the very fabric of Dionysian rites. No symposium, no festival in his honor, would be complete without a vessel of the nepenthe, the grief-banishing draught, standing ready for the morning after. The recipe, of course, was adapted and simplified over time and distance, The common folk, unable to voyage for mythical lotuses or bargain with river gods, used local substitutes: chamomile for the lotus, common fennel for the sacred variety, and honey from their own hives. But the core principle remained: a gentle, herbal infusion taken to soothe the after-effects of revelry. This is the popular, enduring legacy, the concept of the morning-after remedy entering the human lexicon. But the weird, lesser-known fact is what happened to the original, divine recipe. It became a closely guarded secret of the Maenads, passed down in their mystery cults. They believed that drinking the true, original cure didn't just heal the body, but also granted fleeting, beautiful dreams of the god's journey, dreams of silent islands, singing sirens, and the face of a river god formed from water and stone. It was a hidden layer of the myth, a bonus feature for the most devoted. The historians still debate the economic impact this had, spurring trade in herbs like fennel and mint across the Mediterranean and creating a specialized market for purity-certified water from specific springs dedicated to the nymphs. Dionysus, in solving a problem of physiology, had accidentally pioneered brand loyalty and spiritual commodity chains. He watches it all unfold, no longer just the unsettling, foreign god of the wilderness, but an integrated, essential part of daily life. He had given them the means to lose themselves, and now he had given them the surety of finding their way back. As the afternoon sun dips towards the horizon, casting long, gentle shadows across the now peaceful camp, a deep, satisfying fatigue begins to settle over you. It's not the jagged exhaustion of the morning, but a soft, heavy warmth that seeps into your muscles, a feeling of a job well done and a body finally, properly, at rest. The last dregs of your discomfort have faded, leaving behind only a memory, like the faint echo of a dream. You're sitting with your back against the same olive tree where this entire odyssey began, watching the fireflies begin their evening dance among the vines. Dionysus approaches, his movements silent on the soft grass. He sits beside you, not as a god to a mortal, but as one comrade in arms to another. The air between you is easy, filled with the unspoken understanding of a shared, strange, and ultimately successful ordeal. You have been a most excellent companion on this unexpected detour, he says, his voice a low, melodic murmur that blends perfectly with the twilight sounds. A god's promise is a powerful thing, but it is made real by the hands of those who believe in it. For that, you have my thanks. He doesn't offer you gold or a throne or any of the typical divine rewards. Instead, he reaches out and places his hand on your forehead. His touch is cool, like the surface of the calyx that held the cure. A wave of profound, impossible peace radiates from that single point of contact, washing through you from the crown of your head to the soles of your feet. It's a feeling of absolute safety, of being utterly and completely protected from all worry, all noise, all unrest. This is my gift to you, he whispers, his voice now seeming to come from inside your own mind, soft and resonant. A night of sleep untouched by dream or disturbance. A slumber so deep, you will feel the gentle turning of the earth itself. As he withdraws his hand, the feeling remains, a cozy, heavy blanket settling over your consciousness. Your eyelids grow impossibly heavy, not with sickness, but with the promise of perfect rest. The edges of your vision begin to softly blur, the image of the god, the olive trees, and the first stars shimmering above all melting together into a beautiful, indistinct painting. The historians, of course, still debate whether this was a literal divine blessing or a powerful, psychosomatic effect born from the culmination of the day's extraordinary events and the potent, lingering effects of the nepenthe. But the result is the same. You feel yourself sinking, not into sleep, but into a silent, dark, velvet embrace. The last thing you are aware of is the distant, sweet scent of lotus on the night air, and the profound, grateful certainty that when you wake, you will be truly, completely, wonderfully renewed. End of script. Sweet dreams.